So, Card, you got your first two signings locked in for the summer, Scott Butler and James Melhado. Just tell us a little bit about them two.
James was somebody I signed when I first went to Telford. He came on loan from Salford. I'd watched him in a bounce game and he was impressive and he was outstanding for us. Had a couple of bad injuries when he was at Salford, which I think, had he not had them, he would have featured on the back of the loan spell he had with us. But very athletic, very quick, strong one-on-one defender who likes to bomb on and puts balls into the box. Probably he went to Truro on the back of leaving Salford, and I was speaking to him at the time and said, do you really want to go all that way and be out of sight and out of mind? And anyway, he went there and he obviously came back, and he was had been out of sight and out of mind, which is probably why we were able to sign him at Nantwich, because he's a much better player than that level. But like I say, full of energy, fit. I think he only missed one game last season, and that was on the back of 5 yellow cards. But someone I think the fans will really take to, just because of his athleticism and he's up and down from a full-back position and loves to get balls into the box, loves to cross the ball. So yeah, looking forward to him. Another one who's a good age, got plenty of experience, but still got that drive and hunger to kick his career on.
And Scott Butler as well, coming in at centre half.
Yeah, Scott's probably a little bit of a old head on young shoulders. Signed him on loan from Wrexham, and he was outstanding. Reading the game, just his composure on the ball, he can step out with the ball from the back line, and understands when to play and when not to play. And again, another one who's a real good age, doesn't miss football, trains, really low maintenance, just gets on with it. And someone again who I think the lads will really take to, just because of how he plays. He's signed for Marine last season. Obviously they had the troubles, the struggles like ourselves, and with being a young lad, he found himself out on loan, and Scott's one of them who just wants to play, which is how players should be, not just sitting around content. And he's one of them. He went out on loan to Leeds, got recalled, and then ended up finishing the season at Prescott, and they finished the season strong with him in the middle of the back line. And you know, a player that, like I say, who'll come in and be a big part of where we want to go to, just because of how he does things, how he is, and you know, his hunger and drive to play all the time, which is what we need.
You've obviously got a big summer of rebuilding, you know, almost a whole new squad, or certainly a whole new starting team. Just tell us a little about, I know some of the fans may get frustrated at the lack of movement or the lack of announcements at this point, but just talk through a little bit how the process works from you as a manager in terms of identifying players and talking to them and eventually getting a deal done.
Well, you know, I would think 99% of us have lists of players and lists of targets, and you know, you're making calls and you're putting lines through them, you're putting question marks next to them, or you're putting, you know, a tick onto ones who you think you've got a good chance of. But this stage of the season and the way football's going, agents are more and more prominent in the levels, so you're doing a lot through agents now. And they're holding off. They're obviously doing the jobs where they're saying, oh, X club's interested or Y club's interested, and so they're just playing you off, as they always do. You know, I like to try and get things done early, but unfortunately you're part of a process, which means you've got to wait. I'm glad we've signed who we've signed up to now, and there's a couple more over the pocket, if you like. But yeah, it can be frustrating. It can be a slow burner, and trust me, you know, the fans will be as eager as I am to get things done and things moving. But sometimes you've got to be patient, and you've got to just make sure that you're not jumping in, because always there's lads who are prepared to go on trial for a few weeks at clubs higher up and don't get it, or are holding out for, you know, something that's not going to happen. So you have to just sort of keep an eye on those situations as well, where, you know, I think historically when I've been at the club, we've done a lot of good things late on in the sort of pre-seasons, where we've brought the likes of, you know, players in the past, likes of Mark Roberts, Dave Raven, Jack McCreth, players like them who've come in later on in the pre-season, and they've been real strong players for us. So you have to hold out a little bit. You have to not jump in two-footed with anyone who's put to you. But like I say, you know, I am eager to get things moving, and we have got a few lads who I'm hopeful of getting done, you know, over the next few days.
Where are you've got a list of a few lads from last season that we're still in discussions with. Is there any updates on any of them at the moment?
No, that's similar though. You know, the lads that we've got, obviously we've got a couple of lads who are on the back of injuries, who Elliot Morris, who's going to be a couple of months out, but he'll be back with us. He's going to be doing his rehab with Ali, and he's going to be back with us, but obviously he's not going to be in for pre-season or any of the pre-season games because he's still recovering from the op. I'm hopeful on Evan being ready for pre-season, and the likes of Bo, Jay, you know, there's a little bit of interest in them both, so they're just sort of seeing what's there or thereabouts. Josh is waiting on his date for his op, so we have to see how those injured lads are, and on the back of the operations, Whitey again, he's similar. He's in a similar position where he's requiring an op. So, you know, so there is. I am still talking with them and you know, constant contact with them. So, yeah, we just have to see again. We just have to see how they play out, because if there's interest from higher up, or, you know, clubs that will pay them more money, then that's where it ends up. It's the same with players from other clubs who we're speaking to. So yeah, we've just got to, like I say, be patient, and you know, good things will come.
You're a month or so away from the first home pre-season game against Altrincham. How do you want to get into that game? I know, you know, you're quite good at bringing players in. I'm sure there'll be plenty of trialists, but have you got a number in mind of players that you want signed, sealed and delivered in that team for that game?
I'd like the nucleus of it to be done by then, but if it's not, I'm not going to be panicked by it, because the more managers I speak to, they're saying the same thing. I mean, there's managers retaining players who tell me that ideally they wouldn't want to retain, but they don't want to go through the rigmarole of a full rebuild, which we are doing. So, but it's important not to just sign players because they're available or because they want to come. They have to be right. They have to fit into what we want to do and what we see is going to be the way of getting success, which is what we've always done. You know, but I'm pretty confident we'll have the nucleus of the squad in place for then. And if there's still gaps in the squad or gaps in the team, then we'll just keep working until it's right to get the right player in and character. And the two lads who we've brought in are definitely fit that. As I say, the fans will be. I know for a fact that they'll be impressed with them too.